everyone, and welcome to the first episode of SurrealTube, where Emma and I take a look at content on YouTube that one of us thinks the other one would totally like to see and is, as one might imagine, given the name SurrealTube, surreal. I am the host of Scary Stories We Tell, as always, Crustachio, and I'm joined by one of the other hosts of this lovely little show we put together every week on the internet, your friend and mine, the former host of Strange Beliefs, Emma.
It's me. Hello. I am here.
You are here. You are here frequently and constantly, which is what a host is. So there you go. This was your idea, on this show, on Scary Stories We Tell. We have mainline episodes, and then we have episodes like Campfire Stories or Real Talk or Lost Tapes Chronicles, where it's something specific that we want to talk about, but it's still weird, spooky, strange, or even sometimes just adjacent. So Emma was like, hey, let's watch some content on YouTube or the internet at large, I guess. Not just YouTube, but...
Yeah, I mean, not everything that I want to do in this series got its start on YouTube. Most of the things are re-uploaded to YouTube, if they weren't already there, though. But yeah, basically, how I came up with this idea is that I think we were just having a conversation and I just blurted out some random, surreal online series that I grew up watching, just creepy stuff that I'd stumbled across. And Chris said that he never actually got around to watching them, to which I was like, excuse me? How did you miss the bandwagon on half of these?
I have missed the bandwagon on a lot of the things that we're going to watch that I know were stuff that people, I mean, some of these things maybe not, but some of the things that I think of when I think of this kind of content, I know I missed in high school, like Salad Fingers, which I have seen no episodes of. Not that I'm saying we're watching that, but
not today. We will.
Right, but you know what? When I think of surreal YouTube content, obviously,
first one is Salad Fingers. Sure, iconic.
right, yeah. So I missed the boat on that. That wasn't something that kind of content was not something I would say I was initially into in high school. I've grown to love it since then, but I mean, that's, 16 years ago at this point. So it's getting less and less relevant that I didn't like something in high school, given that I've been almost more of an adult since then. You know what I mean? It's almost been 18 years since I was 18. So,
but yeah, I mean, there are a lot of series that I really like that I wanted to just show you for the sake of showing you. And then I was like, screw it. Let's record it. Why not? So basically the way that we want to do this is we're going to watch the video together now. And, every so often, Chris is going to react as needed. And we're going to clip those. We're not just going to play the whole episode auditorially. I feel like that could be annoying. And also copyright.
Yeah, also copyright claims.
Also copyright. But then after that, we'll talk a little bit about what we think it means, discuss, some symbolism and just dive a little deeper into it. But it should be pretty fun. I'm excited to see you react. So today, what I thought we should really kick off with, and primarily because it just had a resurgence, is the Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared series, which again, can't believe you've never watched. So
I had never even heard of.
So just for your information, which is why I told you not to really look at this beforehand, the first episode of this series, how many views do you think it has?
Well, you're either asking me because there's a lot or a little. So a lot.
Give me a number. I need a
35
number.
million.
Try 72 million.
Yeah, okay. That's a lot.
So it was released 11 years ago. It is a really interesting series for a lot of reasons. It combines multimedia in a lot of sense, which is really cool. So it's some things are I would say a good portion of it is live action, and then a good portion of it is also it intersperses some other types of animation in there, which is really cool. All in all, it's fantastically put together. And so it's that deceptively scary, deceptively wholesome, and then it turns scary when you're least expecting it. I love it. That's the type of content I love consuming, is stuff that comes off as cute and happy, and then it turns on you. I love the psychological aspect. Anyway, I'm talking it up enough. I want you to watch this first episode, and we'll see how it goes. Open it up. I'm ready. You ready?
We'll be back in one moment with our reactions to the first episode of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared on YouTube, which is in the links of the episode description as well.
To never be creative again.
Now, the fucking, I will say 100% that the fucking payoff was 100% worth it. I mean, it's effectively like a 3.5 minute long joke for that one singular goddamn punchline. Oh my God. I mean, so again, I would suggest anyone who's listening to this, obviously go and check these videos out before you listen to us talk. Right, obviously. Or go reacquaint yourself. It's 3 minutes and 24 seconds, and it is readily available on YouTube. What's funny to me is, as someone who talks about movies all the time, which I do. Every day, it feels like, of my life for the last 8 years I've spent talking about movies. I have friends who have done it longer than me, but like we have all watched movies more or less every day of our lives. And it's so very clear and obvious to me that the people who are making this content immediately are watching and consuming the kinds of things that I am, because the kinds of references that they're making and the weird, like, sideways esoteric humor, I'm not saying it all comes from one place, but
you can see the inspiration for it. Yeah, you can relate to the inspiration.
There's Cronenberg in there. There's David Lynch in there. There's a lot of like what I would consider to be like more mainstream comedic stuff, like Wonder Chosen from MTV, especially with the puppets, because that's what that reminded me of 100%. I don't know. Did you ever see Wonder Chosen?
No, I haven't.
It's kind of like a demented take on a kids show that was on MTV. It was like 1 or 2 seasons even. Like you can buy the box set and it's like this, like 3 discs type thing. But it was, there were like vignettes with puppets doing bizarre and strange things. And then there were like man on the street things. And then there were skits with kids. Like it was a whole different thing. And this is obviously a lot more kind of singularly thought out than that. What I find interesting is, and I guess what I'm curious about when we go into the next video is there some sort of storyline here?
And that is a great question. And I would say it isn't very clear at the beginning if there is. For like the first couple ones, they kind of all feel like one-offs. At least I myself haven't watched these in a while. I mean, obviously it's here for shock value.
Right. But again, like that's what I mean by it's a setup. It's a very long setup with a lot of like weird, surreal, there's a moment where there's a heart on a table covered in glitter, and then they're moving this heart around, and then the puppets become humans, and there was already a human in the mix, and so that person doesn't even change, but now there's these giant human versions of the puppets, and they start dancing, and there's all kinds of just weird things going on. But it's all for that punchline with the notepad going, all right, never mind.
I can't tell you how many times I have referenced to my friends, green is not a creative color.
I mean, A, they're right. B, you know what this reminded me of also?
What?
Have you seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Yeah.
This reminds me of the same idea behind the, where the Knights of the Round Table bit. That gets me every time when they're like, on second hand, let's not go to Camelot. 'Tis a silly place. Like it's that same. Yeah, like the same kind of style and setup and framework for the joke. But I appreciate it more here because in that it's like, well, okay, so the Knights of the Round Table are just a bunch of goofballs. In this, it's like you said, it starts out very wholesome, very
unassuming.
I'll say that whoever the character is, the yellow character, I'm sure has a name at some point.
You can refer to them as, I believe they're referred to as yellow guy, red guy, and duck. I think those are the 3 main characters.
Okay. So the yellow guy, what's funny about the puppet is the puppet looks unsettling but for me, at least for a singular reason, it's because it has this weird hinge on its upper jaw that kind of comes up and around. And that is not something that like mouth style and the kind of aperture of the mouth is not Muppet-esque. It's kind of a weird evolution of Muppets because Muppets have those rounded mouths. Right. And this character looks more human. He looks similar to like a character from Crank Yankers, really. But what's interesting is his eyes are, because he has nothing around his eyes, he looks horrifying. If you look at like Elmo and Grover and Bert and Ernie,
they have eyelids
or eyebrows. And so they don't look as kind of stark and strange. But when you see this character with his eyes so big and kind of white, and then the tiniest of pupils.
Tiny pupil.
Right. And that's the character, the eyes for all of them. It's just so bizarre. I mean, even the duck character who has, fur around his eyes, those eyes are just so off-putting.
Yeah, it's a very uncanny valley of what we're used to when we think of a Muppet or Sesame Street. Like it's close enough that it's recognizable as that is the inspiration, but it's far enough that it does leave you like, if the context is this like kids content that turns awry, it sits very oddly in the pit of your stomach. Like,
well, and those puppets look like, and what's funny is those puppets look like the Wonder Shows and puppets. Like, if you see what I mean, like that it's. They look more Muppet-esque, but it does have the weird, it's like the eyes are played for laughs on Wonder Shows in the same way that they're being played here. It's like the eyes are intentionally weird and upsetting.
Yeah. I immediately see it.
Yeah. Those like big white eyes. And but again, like you mentioned in the kind of lead up to the video, it's interesting because the video, it's presenting this like ABC 1, 2, 3 type song, but the song never gets really weird. That's kind of the thing I was surprised by. The song has those little moments, but it's actually more strange visually than it is the song. The song never changes. Again, like the green is not a creative color, but like that's not as kind of aggressively strange.
The lyrics never really change. The music does get like very jarbled and chaotic.
Manic.
Yeah, and manic, like in towards like the end there, as like it's picking up, and you can tell that things are just going wrong.
Right.
It's so this came out 11 years ago. What year did this come out in?
2011.
2011. I was 14, so I was like in high school at this time. I don't want to say this scared the shit out of me. Watching it now, and like I haven't watched this in years, and I remember being so much more off-put the first time I watched it, and now I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember this is so fun.
Well, and I will say that's the other thing about this content. It feels very 2011. Like that, this style of humor doesn't play very well anymore.
No,
now,
but
like people aren't creating this content whole cloth like they used to.
Right. So what I will say, for the next one, it didn't come out for basically another 3 years. It came out 8 years ago as opposed to 11 years ago. So there was a big gap, which could tell you, one of two things. One, they weren't really expecting it to blow up the way that it did. Maybe it didn't blow up immediately. And two, the production value that goes into creating this must be massive, must take ages. Like, it is very well done for what it's trying to do. It does it well. Like when it turns from live action to like the digital, like even though it looks low budget, which is on purpose, like it's very clearly on purpose.
No, yeah.
It just, the production value is insane. The fact that they designed the whole set, like that's a real set. Like it's crazy.
I would like, well, I mean, again, like they're doing live action puppetry, so it's a little less involved than like stop motion is.
Right.
But I would be curious to know like what it takes to go into one of these videos, because I would assume it's probably more of an editing nightmare than anything else.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because again, like it's not at least this first one's not stop motion. It's all done in the camera live on set, other than those kind of weird Tim and Eric Andre-esque, like you said, the kind of video shifting into other things. And Tim and Eric Andre do that audio video distortion, intentional stuff constantly.
But I mean, what I will say is with each like new episode, they create a ton of new physical assets and physical props. So it's not just like the exact same like shit, like this felt looking like puppetry, like they make new things. And I think it only gets like crazier over time, if I'm remembering correctly.
Sure.
But okay.
Time. Some things change over time. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared 2. Time. 45 million views, January 8th, 2014. All right. I'm prepared. We'll be right back after we're done watching Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, episode number 2, titled Time, and you can find the link for that episode in the description.
How do we feel?
Okay, so they're essentially doing the same gag as the first one.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't that kind of like, I wouldn't say that it's the same kind of payoff, but it's that same kind of expectation subversion right at the end. But this time it's not really played for laughs. It's more just played for, okay, they were watching this all along and they look just like the people on screen. Like that's that weird little turn. I liked this one. I like this one maybe a little less only because I was expecting it to be, it was exactly what I was expecting. And the last one kind of got a little esoteric and weird. This one is kind of very much something that I am totally on board with what they're getting at with time and the kind of jokes that they're making. I think it's so on point that it's like, this is what I would do. So I liked the other one because it was just a tad more like subversive, I guess.
Sure. One thing that I will say about this one is that obviously in the first one, it was wholesome for a lot longer.
Yeah, it's wholesome 3/4 of the time.
Yeah, this one, they already know why you're here. You probably already saw the first one. So they're not trying to like trick anybody or like really try to subvert because like people already know it's going to go to shit. So they don't waste time, which is great because the whole episode's about time.
Right. And I'm cool with that. Like I'm on board with that. I think
that's what it's missing in comparison to the first one. If you were to watch them in a vacuum and why the first one might be more, I mean, it's obviously more successful because the first one has more views, like significantly. Like this one has like what, 48 million?
I mean, the first one does have that shock value quality.
Yeah. But like, obviously, so with this one, first of all, budget went up.
Oh my God. I mean, we're talking night and day here.
Like I said, they make so many assets, like so many props.
Sure. And other things like there's animation, like actual clearly either hand drawn or done in a computer assisted, drawing program, like fully hand drawn, hand animated stuff, which is not, I mean, even now with all the technology, it's still not easy. Somebody still has to sit and draw it. Doesn't just
see why
AI
people wanted a
exist.
TV show of this?
Yeah, but I think that that's a bad idea because this is the kind of stuff that works in small doses. So I Think You Should Leave, the show on Netflix. It's 15 minutes long. It's a sketch show. And I would contend that like sketch shows don't need to be any longer than that. 15, 20 minutes. It's about like as many or as little as you can force in if you want to have a through line with them or not. But like this, like YouTube and even TikTok now, those platforms exist for things like this. I know that there are people like myself, like yourself, who will watch 30 to 40 to 50 to sometimes, I mean, I've watched several of Mahler's YouTube videos that are 7 hours long in their entirety, but I like more content of something I like, longer videos, I mean, not more videos of shorter length. I like longer videos of in-depth things that I can sit and dig into for a couple hours.
Sure.
But this kind of content is perfect for YouTube because short engagement in its entire, 3.5 minutes and you're done watching it. The entire story and everything is told in 3.5 minutes.
And it's done so well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's done, even though I was less of a fan of this kind of just video, again, not a fan. It's just like, it wasn't as creative, but again, like, it's still very creative. It's just, it wasn't as subversive, which was, like we said already, like they can't do that twice, but they could, it would just be, I guess, then I might've said, well, it's, I don't know. I liked it. It didn't have that it didn't have the impact that the first one did.
Fair. I will say, I think at this point, the videos start getting slightly longer. The longest being 8 minutes, which I think is the last one of the YouTube series. So what I will say is I haven't watched the TV series of this. And I think I also, if we do wind up covering it, I want to watch it with you and blind react along with it.
Sure.
And I have a feeling it's going to be, the reason why it's more long form is because people wanted to know like the backstory of these characters, and it's probably going to dive into more lore,
sure,
rather than like the one-offs. But what I really wanted to tell you before we started, and I stopped myself, are you familiar with the term? You must be, and I bring this up for a reason, the Tumblr sexy man.
Nope.
For those of you that don't know, which I'm depending on generation, I suppose, a Tumblr sexy man is basically on Tumblr, which is a social media platform specifically for fandoms. Basically, certain characters, usually animated, I would say like 98% of the time, they're from a show or from a video game. And it's basically like Tumblr, a certain aspect of Tumblr will blow up with fan art, potentially sexual in nature. A lot of it is. One very infamous one is, I'm sure you watched Gravity Falls. You never watched Gravity Falls? What the fuck?
Emma, I'm telling you, I like animation. I don't love animation.
Oh, that hurts.
I mean, again, like it's just not something I was never into beyond like.
Did you? Okay.
Turtles, X-Men, Batman, Superman, like those. I never went into it being more of a serious medium, not because I don't think it's a serious medium, but by the time I got to that age, I was not hanging out with people that were into it. You know, it was, again, like I'm not into it. It's just not, it's a blind spot.
Did you see like that? I think it was like Illumination or so. One of the animated The Lorax.
Yeah.
The lanky character guy who's like the capitalist is a Tumblr sexy man. People went ape shit over this lanky, skinny ass, emo looking capitalist fucker. Like I'm talking fan art upon fan art. People are feral over this fucker. And so the reason why I bring this up is because the clock is considered a Tumblr sexy man.
Great.
I just wanted you to know.
Great.
I myself don't see it. But the internet is a beautiful place. And Rule 34 will forever rule our lives on the internet. But yes.
I will say the other thing about this, I appreciated that they had some like kind of body horror adjacent stuff where they were showing them aging quickly in time and kind of falling apart. I wish we had gotten to see more of it because the puppets that they were using and the effects that they were using were cool. I understand that, again, that's the joke moment of the episode. That's the payoff. So we're not going to get to see very much of it, but I like what they were doing with the characters.
You don't want to overdo it to like where it no longer feels shocking. Like when I first watched that, and obviously it's over so quickly and returns to normalcy so quickly, seeing it very quickly doesn't give your brain a chance to really process it, and it feels very visceral. So when I was younger when this first came out, so at this point I was a little bit older, still in high school, and I think that one scared me more than the first one. I mean,
it is pretty brutal and graphic. Again, even though it's puppets, like you're seeing the duck like melt to the bone. You're seeing the yellow guy like start to essentially shrivel up like a raisin, and his teeth and stuff falling. Like it is
rapidly aging.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me a lot of the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones. You have a character melting. You have another character kind of, because the one character kind of melts, but also like his face sucks in. So I mean, again, they're referencing a lot of horror, a lot of sci-fi, a lot of like just strange Lynchian content that already exists, which again, I really appreciate because it's horror adjacent. It's not horror content, but I don't know what else you would call it. It's horror adjacent.
Sure. So before we move on, so what is your current thoughts? So these two, episodes together, what are your thoughts on the series, potentially where you think it's headed? What is your overall feelings? Where are we at right now?
Again, I think that the gimmick has worked twice now, and I hope that it's not the third. If the third video is similar to the first two in format and presentation, where it's like oh, somebody's going to sing a song and it's going to get really weird. Like, then I understand what this show is going for and what its like direct central inspiration is. But if the third video is something different, then I'll be interested. I'm enjoying it so far. Obviously, it's very much up my alley. I think the thing I'm more surprised by outside of everything is the fact that I had never seen this before.
That's why
because I have friends that send me stuff like this all the time.
I couldn't believe you had never even watched the first one. Like, I can understand if you didn't see all of them, but like,
I've never seen any of these.
The fact that you've never seen, like, that is what blew my mind. And that is why I was like, we need to have this as a series. Like,
I agree. Like I said, Wonder shows and other things like this I have seen and love. And so it's just weird to me that, and this is not like it's an unknown thing. 45 million, 75 million, 3 million subs. Like that's nothing to sneeze at.
Which is why I can't believe you've never seen it.
I'm as surprised as you are.
I love it. I love everything about it. It is the right amount of like impressive while also being the right amount of I'm really glad I watched that with the lights on kind of thing.
So this is Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared 3, posted October 31st, 2014. So less time in between.
Yes. I think now at this point, they were like, there's something here. And the fact that people like it made them want to keep going with it. Obviously, they have a ton of fun with it. And they have a lot of really interesting concepts of where they want it to go. So they really wanted to capitalize on it.
So 30 million views, again, nothing to sneeze at. And the description is, maybe I could hold your hand and together we can understand. All right. We'll be back after this short break as we watch the third episode of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, which you can find in the episode description below.
Father! Pesky bee!
So in The Wicker Man, at the end of the movie, Nicolas Cage, or in the original, the guy is put into a giant wicker man on the top of a hill and lit on fire because they believe that by sacrificing someone inside of a giant wooden man, they'll bring their crops back. Or they'll prosperity for their crops. And then in this video, it's literally that same like thing where it's like, all right, I couldn't tell if they were going to feed him to the head, but that's kind of what it seemed like they were getting at.
He eats gravel, Chris.
Sure. Sure.
They said it. They said he eats gravel.
But I was waiting for the moment where all of a sudden they're feeding him into the thing. I was waiting for it. I really was. But then the shot at the end of the little, I guess, episode where where it's shot from a very low angle up at the head and they're lighting it on fire. I mean, if that's not supposed to evoke the Wicker Man made by a clearly British or UK bound crew of people, like if that's not what that's supposed to evoke, I don't know what it's supposed to evoke. Fair. I will say I like this one the most out of all three of them.
Yeah.
Only because that song is a hell of a bop.
It really is.
Those other two haven't really been. They were more like, they were less songs, more like
it was like slam poetry.
Although they were more informational than this one was.
Yeah, this had like a bridge and a chorus.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I know it was good. And so this segment or this episode's tackling love and what does love mean. And I guess the other thing that I appreciated is it gets weird, but it doesn't get so weird that they kind of lose track of the main idea.
Yeah, I feel like they dialed it back in. So everybody was expecting it to get worse than the last one.
Right.
And then it kind of didn't until like the very, very end. It remained relatively wholesome, just with, some weird elements to it, some like off-putting, like, remember, this is still a Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared video, but like it didn't have that shock value really until the very end.
Well, when the beaver said "pet me harder," I did laugh out loud. But again, like
that has like Charlie the Unicorn energy though.
Right. Well, and that's like,
Please tell me you've seen Charlie the Unicorn.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Oh, thank God.
But like that, I used to fuck with my friends in high school. We'd be like out to lunch together and I would just like make eye contact with somebody as they were like biting into something. I'd be like, go slow, slower, go slower. And you can ask some of my friends if I did it. And like, yeah, it was always funny. Everybody would always laugh. And that's why I would do it. Cause like, but it's that same thing where it's like being weird for comedy's sake. Nobody, I mean, like obviously in this, like that beaver was into it, but but I like that, like you said, that kind of joke that like it's wholesome, it's wholesome and wholesome. It's not wholesome, and they're not hanging a lantern on it. They just keep going. And nobody is like, what the fuck? Or even if they are, it's like they're responding and then they're cutting away from it immediately. They don't give you a moment to sit with it. They just keep going.
Oh, yeah. And that it really feels like you are on a train that is going off the rails. And like everything is happening around you and you have no control. And things are just like fucking.
This one especially, like you said, that these kind of videos are best when the train starts derailing without you realizing it until it's too late.
Yes.
The last video, like I said, with the time episode, it's my least favorite of the three because that felt predictable. Like where they went with it was like, that was kind of the only place they could go because they were talking about time, unless they went esoteric, which this episode went pretty esoteric with the, again, Wicker Man reference, Wicker Man / I guess Zardoz. You could even, because in Zardoz it's a Sean Connery movie, but they pray to a giant stone head that flies around, and I kid you not, it says the gun is good, the penis is bad. Right. That's somehow weirder. That's somehow weirder than this. And that's serious. That's a serious movie. Well, I guess serious, but like it's not being said as a joke in that, but it's like a weird 70s sci-fi.
Yeah.
movie.
Without context. Very, very odd.
It's still, no, hold on. It's still odd in the context of the movie. I'm not sure what movie that's not odd in, but that's like, again, clearly what they're referencing. But what I do appreciate is, I said at the end of that video, like, oh, this is a Wicker Man reference. And you were like, what? And like that for me is a good thing, that reference, you getting it or not, doesn't hurt or lessen your ability to enjoy this. And for me, it just kind of continues to inform me as someone who watches a fair amount of content, at least movies. It continues to inform me like what their references are and where they're kind of coming from as content creators.
Right. Which
I like.
Like, obviously I love, understanding inspiration as well, but it definitely is not necessary to understanding what they're trying to do. And yeah, I guess that really does illustrate it well. Some
surreal content requires you to have like a knowledge of certain things. And I love when something like this crafts a world where there are references, but they're subtle enough where if you get it, cool. If not, we're just going to keep going. Like, don't hang on it. Don't focus on it. Don't, we're going to sit and like, look at this one thing. I mean, that's the nostalgia thing, but this is a similar thing where you could just sit and focus on it. I like that this is just like, just go. Yeah. Don't stop.
So I would say in this episode, this is really where like Yellow Guy is solidified to be the child of the main three. He's asking a lot of questions about love like a child would. And that's really interesting that they chose him specifically for this to be like the main, character of the three to be interacted with. Like he is the main character of this story. And it's quite fascinating. I think it says a lot about how we talk about love in society. And this is like where it starts getting like kind of cool, is like that meta commentary of it's saying more than just what it looks like it's saying on the outside. Like once you start putting the pieces together, you can start to see like the references to real world and how like we do kind of, tell kids like real early on, like one day you're going to meet your special someone and they'll give you a ring like mommy and daddy. And like, it's especially on the graves where it said Mr. and Mrs. Dead.
Yeah, again, like it's
that I love.
They know what they know how to do, like you said, subtext really well, and also playing into the metatextual nature of what they're talking about. Because again, like you said, like there are real world implications and connotations when they're sending up kids shows that are trying. I mean, that's what this is, right? Obviously, like I said, I didn't know if the first two videos, the third one was going to be that same kind of thing, but
it's pretty obvious now.
It's a send up of Schoolhouse Rock, Sesame Street.
It is a parody of children's programming,
but a very specific kind where it's trying to not just be entertainment, but verging on like edutainment.
Yeah, it's definitely trying to get a point across,
which is what
also,
Wonder Chosen did.
Yeah, obviously, like while also being just like so entertaining, and again, all of the fucking puppets they made for this one, and as you said, this came out not too long after the second one.
Right. I'm sure they spent 3 years
characters
working on all of this, right?
Sure, but it's just like the production value just keeps going up, and like that big animation sequence, like, oh, it is so good.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, I appreciate that, like, you kind of, you mentioned it, but I'm sure it would have come up either way. They keep adding stuff. Like you said, the first one was just the puppets with a little bit of the kind of CGI. And then the second one was a little bit more, and they had kind of more animation, but it wasn't as much here. And now they've really embraced a hand-drawn animation. I'm sure one of these is going to be like a claymation or stop motion or something. And I appreciate that, because mixing the mediums is fun and interesting, and it adds a disconcerting quality to these kinds of things when it starts shifting between mediums. And for a lot of people, that's not easy to kind of process, because you're used to, I'm watching a movie, it's live action, or it's puppets, and then it goes from puppets to live action to animated to a mix of the three, and it's like, oh my God, it's like slow down. But I like that, because again, it just adds to this frantic, manic nature of the world that they've created, where things go off the rails very quickly. It's a more nuanced Happy Tree Friends and a lot less cringy. It's a lot less cringy, more esoteric, more thoughtful. It's actually saying something.
Exactly.
Happy Tree Friends was always just about like seeing characters that are cute getting killed in funny ways, which, like, there's a value with that. But
yeah, it was supposed to be, you know, an adult animation like take. Like, look at, like, yes, animation can be for adults. Animation can be gory and targeted towards an older audience. And I feel like Happy Tree Friends had a place. I didn't watch a ton of it. I don't, because it definitely was not my thing. Not that I like dislike gory. Obviously, like, some of this is gory and I'm all for it. Because again, it's done well and there's a purpose behind it. I didn't really like Happy Tree Friends, you know, gore for the sake of gore.
Well, it's like watching Halloween Ends for the kills, right? Like, you're not there for anything other than the kills. And if you're watching something like Happy Tree Friends, the story was set dressing for however the characters were going to get eviscerated.
Which is probably exactly why I was never a fan of like thrillers, in terms of like all of the horror movies that I gravitate towards are psychological.
And I totally get it. I mean, there's a time and
which
a place.
Is where this leans way more than like gore and shock value. I think this leans, it's that psychological buildup that, you know, something bad is coming.
I think it's mixing them though, because again, at the end of this episode, we have again a gory segment of a puppet being crushed into guts. Yeah. So I mean, again, I think it's mixing them deftly. I'm sure the longer the show goes on, the more it starts to really play with your expectations about what it's going to do in scenes, given that we've seen them. Because at some point, it's going to stop being original what they're doing, and they're going to subvert your expectations about what they're going to do, which right now, all they're doing is subverting the expectations of what we've seen of someone else doing. Soon it will lean into, we're going to subvert your expectations for our actual content, which is an interesting turn.
That is pretty spot on.
And that's a pretty interesting turn to take, but that's also a great opportunity that a lot of content creators don't get, because most content creators are not creating content for sole subversive value. But when you make stuff like this and then you can lean in back on your own stuff, that's exciting. And I'm sure the people that were making this or are making this show were excited to realize and or have already known that, like, now we can subvert their expectations on our stuff, not just for other people's stuff.
Sure. So one question I have for you is, which like shock value scene was the most unsettling out of the 3 episodes?
It's probably the end of the second one where the puppets are falling apart.
That one's rough.
Right. But I mean, again, like they're leaning on things that we've seen from other movies and turning it in with puppets. And that's, again, I've never seen anything like that with a puppet, where a puppet starts shriveling up like a human would in other movies that we've seen. Like I said, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Last Crusade,
right?
Any body horror movie, like, you don't see that with puppets. You see it with human actors and CGI and practical effects. And to see it done so deftly with puppets where one of them is kind of stop motion, and then it's really the yellow guy that's the more impressive one out of the three. But I liked it because, again, I've never seen that, but it is pretty unsettling of the three things that have the three episodes that we watched that have unsettling moments in them.
Definitely. So, okay, my big overarching question. What do you think, and I don't even know the answer to this, more of just let's talk it out. What do
prognostication?
You think, yeah. What do you think the title "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared" means? Because, like, obviously,
is there an explanation?
Not that, I mean, I could Google it. Not that I know of. I was thinking, it came to me as we were watching, like, I think, like, in the middle of while we were watching the second one. It, like, because obviously, most people, when they are scared, want to be comforted. That is the idea. So it would be, hug me, I'm scared. Please hug me, I'm scared. So why is it, don't hug me, I'm scared? What do you think, thinker?
I think it is just playing off of that expectation of, like, I'm scared, but don't touch me. Like you said, the expectation is like, I'm scared, hug. And right. I think it's that immediate subversion of your expectations, which is the name of the show. I think kind of gives you an idea that they're already playing off of what your expectations are. I think all the name really does is just set the stage for, you're watching something that's going to be taking something that you understand, a phrase like, I'm scared, hold me. And they're saying, don't hug me, I'm scared. Like, that makes, again, on the face of it, given how you could interpret it normally, it makes no sense.
Right.
And it subverts your expectations. I think it's just another way that they're subverting the expectations of the viewers. I'm not sure it necessarily means anything. Do you?
No, I feel like that probably, because that's sort of what I was thinking also, is like, it is, again, that subversion of expectation. And I think that's probably all it really is. But I was thinking about it, like, I wonder if there is a deeper meaning than that. But that's, I mean, at the very least, that's the most obvious, I think.
Yeah, it's the least in depth, and it's the most on the face of it. Like, maybe later in the show, there is something that they allude to that makes that have more sense than just a subversive name for the show. But as right now, I think that in my mind is all it is.
Maybe with the series, maybe it, like, when they turned it to, 22-minute episodes after. Yeah, which I think we should dive into. Maybe we'll
sure. It's just, I wonder if that can sustain. Fair. It's like anything else. Like, these are working because they're short, breezy, entertaining. They get through it. They get to the point. They get to the punchline, and it's it. You can continue with your day. 22 minutes is verging on a narrative, and it's verging on requiring a narrative. Like I was saying, like with sketch shows, like a good sketch show should not be more than 30 minutes. Because how much time do you need? How many sketches do you need every week? At some point, it's just like, you need to say, like, it's either half an hour or an hour. But I think with a sketch show, 30 minutes is the right way to do it without needing a narrative. Past that, you need a narrative or some sort of forward momentum to keep people entertained for a full hour, unless you're just talking like a straight nonfiction informative TV show, which is not what this is.
Right. So would you say that you are pleasantly surprised with this first thing that I picked out for you?
Again, like, I didn't have any preconceived notions about what it was going to be, and I'm glad that this is what it is. This is, let me put it this way. It's going to be hard for me to not watch more of it ahead of this, because I want to. I know.
This Thursday, when we record again, we can do it instead of whatever else we had planned. If you really want to dive more into it, we totally could. I love this series. It is so different. And that's why it blew up, because it's so different. Like, yeah, and it has that creep factor, which draws attention, and people want to share it to freak out their friends. And like, that's probably how it grew so quickly, is that it's something digestible and shareable. And it really drags you in with, what the fuck did my friend send me? What the fuck is this? And then, like, obvious, especially with the first one. I think that was why the first one has been shared so much, and it really got around. I mean, it has over double the views that, the third episode does. Just because I think it really does set the stage, and is a really great way to, like I said, like, really to, like, just freak out your friends.
I think it's also the most palatable of the three.
Yeah.
Like, the most mainstream.
The most easily digestible.
Yeah. Again, like, I
It's not
my
saying
favorite.
anything. It's not saying anything too crazy.
No, and
it's
it doesn't go too crazy either.
Right. I definitely think it focuses much more on the punchline, as you called it, that shock at the end, and then that joke that they kind of follow it up with. Yeah, I totally agree. It's not saying anything like super deep, but obviously in the context of kids shows, I would say that the general meaning behind it is probably something on the lines of like, children's shows, encouraging creativity in children, especially the children consuming said shows. But like on top of that, they're like setting parameters for what is and isn't creative, what you should be doing.
But like they don't go far enough with it, and that,
Right.
but that's also the benefit of that first episode is they don't go far enough with it.
I also feel like it doesn't need to be over-explained. I feel like that's something that we all can sort of understand. I mean, like think of all the times that you were like in elementary school and your teacher in art class was like, "Do it like this," and you're like, "But I want to do it this way. I think this way would be cooler."
I think they could have leaned on that more in that first episode. I think they could have leaned on making it weirder. But again, like they didn't, because if they make it too weird, they really alienate clearly half of the people that watched it.
Yeah.
Literally about half.
Yep. So
35 million people did not come back for the second or third videos.
Yep.
Or they didn't watch the first video. They didn't watch the second and third subsequent videos on repeat like they did the first one. That's the other. You know what I mean? The first one benefits from more people and increased watches. That second and third, they're half as many. And I don't know how many of those halves are repeats on top of everything else.
I will also say that the first not only is incredibly iconic, but more easily, there's more like fun, like little quote snippets, very memorable lines.
Right. It's quotable too. Yeah. But again, like that's the benefit of that first one. It's very sanitized for a certain kind of audience.
What's your favorite idea? Mine's
like that's
being creative.
It's funny. Like it's funny, but it doesn't.
You just have to think creatively, Chris.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's not that hard.
Apparently not. I mean, again, like I said, I really liked it, but I also just would contend that the better episodes of this show are coming, because the first episodes are good, but I'm sure once they start digging into the show more and the ideas that they want to go at and the things they want to say are not as simple to digest as the things that we've seen so far, and the show is getting more challenging.
Audience. Yeah, they found their core audience, and they're really now like they really caught their stride at this point. Like,
and they're dripping the weird stuff in more and more and more.
So, but yeah, I think 3 is enough. Obviously, we have another 3 coming, and then up to you if you want to continue onto the show, which again I have not even seen. So I would also love to blind react to that as well. Is that
on TV or is that on streaming?
No, it's streaming. I looked this up earlier before our call because I wanted to be sure. It is on channel4.com, and apparently you just need to sign in to play it. So
interesting.
I will look into that just to be sure if that's really the case. If not, I'll find another place to watch it. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this episode idea that I had. I had a lot of fun showing you this. I would have had a lot of fun showing you this anyway.
I enjoyed it. I mean, again, it's like you said, it's right up my alley. It is definitely the kind of stuff that I am already watching, or the things that I like to watch. So this is not a hard sell for me. Might be a hard sell for some of the folks, some of the listeners in our audience. But if you're here listening to this show already, and you're into the kinds of things that I'm into and the kinds of things that Emma is into, then you're going to be into this. Give that first episode a try. And if you're into it, the second one. And if you're into that one, the third one. And they have gotten better too. Each one, I mean, the second one fell a little bit, but didn't fall enough for me to be like, it's not at least as good. It's just slightly like,
but the minor. Being inherently sexy.
I'm not game about that. Like, I don't want to think about a clock with a cock, okay? Because that's essentially what you're asking me to imagine. And I'm not interested in clocks or cocks with cocks on clocks. Or
I feel
clocks
it's less. Cocks. I mean, it's partially that he looks dapper and lanky. because that is very much the Tumblr sexy man.
So what? So he has a long penis too? That's what people are imagining?
No, but it's also the threatening aura. The condescending, threatening aura, I think, is very key with Tumblr sexy men.
I think people are horny nine times out of 10, and they want to fuck anything that moves.
No shit. They'll fuck the clock, Chris.
I guess so. We're fucking the clock from Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. All right. I'm done for the day, as they would say. Emma, where can people find you when you and I aren't talking about clocks with cocks?
As always, I am never prepared for the plug. Probably the Instagram, I suppose.
You live in a legal state. You don't have to be prepared for the plug, okay?
Fair.
Just saying.
On Instagram, there's Strange Beliefs podcast. I don't know. Look it up. It's there somewhere.
You're the host of this show now. Yeah. That's where you find you here.
Yeah, you can find me here. But obviously, if you're interested in the show that I used to host with myself and one of my best friends, Arthur, who is a practicing witch, told me a lot about witchcraft. And most of those episodes are basically me going in as a skeptic and him going in trying to less so convince me, but more so me just like asking him a shitload of questions to figure it out, because I wanted to learn and see if there's more to this world, which he kind of sort of was successful in convincing me. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can find that primarily on YouTube. We're also, where other podcasts are usually, but I put the most love into posting it on YouTube. So again, Strange Beliefs podcast if you're interested, but otherwise I'm here now.
I've been here for almost 2 years now.
God, has it been that long?
Hasn't it? It's been like 1.5 years at least.
That sounds more right than 2 years.
I lost track of time a long time ago.
Now
I got to think about that clock with a clock.
I know the clock said time is linear, but as Duck stated, I do think it's all very subjective and just a perception of, our brains as humans. So
I agree, but that doesn't make it suck any less.
That's valid.
Yeah. As for me, cstashu.com, weirdingway.com, 19 and plus podcast, 19 and counting podcast over at Weirding Way Media, including this one and a bunch of other ones, new ones coming all the time. OG podcast getting new episodes every week or weekly or bi-weekly or monthly or whatever their posting schedules are. I don't control all of them. That's why content creators exist separately from the network. As for me, cstashu.com, this show, Scary Stories We Tell.com, Scary Stories WT on all social media. Big thanks always to Maggie Diod and Dustin Rutledge for the album artwork for the show. You can find Maggie Diod on Instagram. Just search Maggie Diod. And to our good friend Alex Malnack of Blondo. He's touring the Midwest right now, doing the whole musician thing, which is awesome. You can find out more about him on Spotify. Just search Blondo or find him on Facebook because, like I said, he's touring the Midwest. And if you live in Missouri or Kansas or Nebraska or Iowa, might actually be able to go see Blondo live and in person. I don't think they're going to play the song that they do for our show because it's instrumental, but his other music, I'm a huge fan of. I sing it unironically, even though he is a close friend. Emma, thank you so much for this episode idea. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It worked rather well, even.
It was a little amorphous in concept, but we figured it out. And I think we landed on a pretty good format here. And yeah, I hope our audience enjoys, something a little different. And if you guys have any suggestions for, other series, not necessarily on YouTube, anything in this realm of just creepy, scary, surreal, something that we can talk about and riff on and discuss and maybe see if there's a deeper meaning, something that might not be as well known, definitely let us know. The mainstream ones like Salad Fingers, etc., like that I'm aware of. Tell me the weird ones.
Yeah, give us something that we've never heard of. It's not that hard, right?
I'm sure.
Right? Maybe it is. I mean, again, I had never heard of this, so I don't think it can be that hard. So And we'll let our good friend, the host of Sightings, Mr. Tim White, lead us out.
No mystery is closed to an open mind.